Hello there and welcome to the video. So my name is Mark Miles, as many of you would know, and just want to do a quick video on how do you take all the skills that you know and all the skills that you learn from the face-to-face context and apply that to online delivery. Because as we often talk about, there are some academic fundamentals that make online delivery so much harder to do effectively. Okay. Now, due to COVID and due to the pandemic, we are now facing a reality where, regardless of your industry, you are in a position now as a trainer where you have no choice to be able to deliver online, okay? And maybe pre-pandemic, you could sort of get away with it. You could sort of go, nah, I just want to do this training face to face, and you could sort of weave your way out of it, so to speak. Nowadays, it's not really the case. You have to be able to have the flexibility and the skill set to be able to effectively deliver face-to-face and deliver effectively online. And quick story, when I first delivered a training program online, it was probably when I ran the TAE course, the normal face-to-face course. We took that onto Zoom and we did that over a 5-day period. Now, one of the things that you learn very quickly is that with Zoom, the smaller the group, the easier it is, okay? And on Zoom, the larger the group, the harder it is. In a face-to-face context, though, the larger the group, the easier it is. The larger the group, the easier it is in a face-to-face context. And in a face-to-face context, the smaller the group, the harder it is, okay? Now, if you've been around me for any length of time, you would understand that statement in the sense that when you've got a larger group, it's a lot easier to combine people together, do different varieties of activities, and all those different things that we talk about, right, in the TA. Now, fundamentally, you can pretty much take all the skills that you learn through us onto the online mode of delivery as well, okay? However, being online, there are some innate difficulties or challenges, okay? So number one, for example, internet speed, okay? And what does that mean? Well, it means that it's a lot harder to check in with people and also get real-time reactions. It's a lot harder to do that, right? And you've got to be maybe able to see everybody's screen, everybody's face, and be able to monitor all of that, right? Next thing, it's a lot harder to do practical activities. I mean, it's pretty much impossible, okay? Unless you are watching someone do something on the screen and, you're doing an observation or something like that. But it's a lot harder to do practical activities. Number three, it's a lot harder to cater to people's learning styles, as we talked about, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, right? It's a lot harder to cater for that. Next, it's a lot harder to customize your training to the audience because it's harder to get, as I said, real-time feedback, okay? So there's a lot of things that with online delivery, you're restricted. And it's a lot harder to do. Having said all of that, it still doesn't negate the three core, principles of effective delivery, which, as you would know, when you hang around me, you may get sick of hearing it, but it is rapport, it's engagement, it's retention. Rapport, engagement, retention. Rapport, engagement, retention. And if you can walk away from any training session going, yep, there was good levels of rapport there. Yep, there was great engagement there. And yep, there was great retention of information. Well, then I've done a pretty good job. Okay. So if we overlay that criteria, that success criteria over what we may be doing in an online capacity, we can still achieve our aims, but we just have to approach it slightly differently. Now, A lot of the times when I watch you guys do your online deliveries, you do fall into a trap, and let's just acknowledge it, let's just be honest about it. A lot of times people fall into presenter mode. And although I appreciate there's online delivery, you still need to keep in mind that it's online, still training in some way, shape or form. And what's the difference between a presentation and a training? Well, a presentation is basically, I'm just going to deliver a bunch of information to you, but I'm not really going to care how it lands. I'm just not, okay? I'm just going to share a bunch of information, and how you take it is how you take it. Training, on the other hand, is me delivering information and then checking in with you to see how it landed, okay? And I really want to encourage you to keep that framework in your mind, that a presentation is just delivering a bunch of information, and how you receive it, up to you, all right? Basically a monologue, okay? Now, a training session, on the other hand, whether it's face-to-face or online, it really should have much more of a dialogue flow to it, okay? Two-way interaction, okay? And I'm trying to really emphasize the point here. And when you can get that solidified in your mind, how you would show up on an online delivery would be different, right? Because it's not just about delivering a bunch of information, it's about getting a two-way interaction. As I said, it's a lot harder to do that because you've got to be able to read the audience and see what's going on. It's a lot harder to do that in the online world because you've got so many screens to look at. You've also got to be checking your notes. You've got to be delivering your content. You also got to be checking the chat box and all these different things, right? So you got so many different things to consider at one time, okay? And it's a really, really critical thing to think about. Now, what we want to think about is ultimately training. As I said, it's about how is your message landing, okay? So first thing I want to encourage you to do is really regularly check in with your audience. So you may be delivering a slide on PowerPoint on Zoom or a couple of points, and then ask them, how did that land? Does that make sense? Ask them questions throughout your session. Ask them questions, okay? Because that's going to keep them involved, and it's going to keep them feeling like they're acknowledged and they're like, yeah, I'm here, okay? Because so many times in the online world, sometimes someone will turn off their video and they'll just go off and do the ironing or something like that, right? So you want to make sure that you constantly check in with people and seeing how your content is landing, okay? And next thing, one of the philosophies I have is that I will never go on to the next thing until I've got a response from everyone, okay? Now, that could be something like, all right, if you are ready for the next key point in the chat box, type ready. Or if you are ready for the next thing, put in a smiley face, okay? And I'll change it up quite regularly, but I always want to make sure that everybody is on track with me. And if that's me waiting literally for 15 people to put a smiley face in the chat box, that's what I'll be doing, okay? But I'm not going to go ahead unless everybody is with me. Does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully it does, right? And constantly looking to check in with people and get response. Next thing, the other thing is that you want to tell people how you want them to respond, okay? So with Zoom, for example, you could have everyone on camera and you could say, all right, if you're ready, do a thumbs up, okay? And get them to physically do a thumbs up in the camera. Another one could be, if you're ready for the next point, type in the chat box, ready, okay? If you are ready for the next point, on the reactions, click thumbs up, okay? Whatever it might be, whatever you choose, create some kind of reaction that you would like them to demonstrate to you, okay? Vary it up. I like to have some fun with it. Maybe it's a smiley face, maybe it's something else, right? But ultimately, you want to constantly be getting engagement, okay? And so as you would know, in the model, rapport, engagement, retention, a big part of it is definitely retention as well. So you want to be thinking, how can I repeat the key points multiple times as well? Okay, so you want to be rehashing content along the way, and by doing so, you are going to be able to make sure that they're hearing it multiple times. But what do you also do? You then say, all right, in the chat box, tell me what were the 3 key points that we just talked about, and get them to actually type in the chat box what were those 3 key points, right? And ultimately, we're trying to apply those same principles that we would apply in a face-to-face context into an online context where we want, rapid engagement. We want to be checking in with people. We want to make sure they're remembering things, and we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we're all going along on that journey. Okay. Hopefully this is making sense to people, but I see too many people trying to just take the PowerPoint methodology and applying it to Zoom or applying it to Teams or whatever it might be, and it just becomes a monologue as opposed to a dialogue, right? And just because the medium's change, it doesn't mean that the principles of effective training change or should change in any way, shape or form, right? So hopefully this has made sense to you all. And so just to recap, there is a difference between training and presentation. You always want to be thinking about rapport, engagement, and retention. All right. In online delivery, you definitely want to be checking in with people regularly and asking them, does that make sense? And getting response back from them in either the chat box or visually or however you may want to do it, right? And then last of all, you definitely want to be waiting for a response. And so that might sound like, all right, before we go into the next activity, I just want to make sure everyone's ready. Type ready in the chat box. You can certainly add in things like breakout rooms. And breakout rooms are really cool for doing small activities. And on Zoom or even on Teams, you can actually go into the rooms and listen to what people are doing. Having said that, with your breakout rooms and activities that you do, you want to be really precise. And you want to be really careful on the timing, because if you allow an activity to go on too long, people will soon start to get social, so to speak, and start to talk about topics outside what they need to be working on, right? So you definitely want to be thinking about that. And breakout rooms are great, but make sure that you know how to do them before you do your very first online training, so to speak, all right? Because people have low patience for people that have not got their tech issues sorted out. And I say that with respect. And I know tech issues happen, but at the same time, make sure that you know the functionality and how to do things before you go live and actually do it for the first time, okay? So I hope that's been valuable. Hope you got something from it. If you got any questions about online training, online delivery, just pop them in the comments box below, and more than happy to help you out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next one. Bye for now.